Imagine this. You're sealed inside a 45-ton steel coffin. The air smells like oil and cordite. Through the periscope you see nothing but snow and smoke. Your hands grip cold metal controls that resist every move. Stiff, heavy, slow. Behind you, a Maybach V12 growls like an animal ready to die. You're sitting inside what was supposed to be Germany's greatest weapon, the Panther tank. A masterpiece on paper, a monster in theory. And yet, what Allied crews discovered inside these super tanks would rewrite everything. We thought we knew about war. Machines. It's December 1944. The forests of the Ardennes lie silent under a blanket of snow. American tank crews huddle inside their M4 Shermans, engines idling, breath fogging the air. Out in the mist they hear it, that deep, rhythmic rumble. German armor is coming. Panthers, the predators of the battlefield. Every American tanker knew the stories. A single Panther could take on 5 Shermans. Its 75mm high-velocity gun could punch through Allied armor at over 2 kilometers. Its frontal plate, 80mm thick and sloped at 55 degrees, was nearly invincible. And the Sherman. 33 tons of thinner armor and a smaller gun. Crews had a dark nickname for their tank, Ronson, like the cigarette lighter. Lights every time, they joked grimly. On paper it looked hopeless. But as the war ground on, the Allies learned something the Germans hadn't. In war, numbers and steel are only half the story. The real secret lies in reliability, in the machines that actually make it to the fight. When the Panther rolled into service, it was Germany's answer to the Soviet T-34. After the shock of facing those fast, sloped armored Soviet tanks in 1941, German engineers raced to design a counter. By 1942, the Panther prototype was ready. Sleek, powerful, deadly. It should have been unstoppable. But almost immediately, reports from the front painted a very different picture. Panthers abandoned on the roadside. Not destroyed, just dead. Engines cold, transmissions shattered, final drives torn apart. When Allied engineers inspected the wrecks, the truth was clear. The Panther was breaking itself. It was simply too heavy for its own design. The final drives, which transferred power to the tracks, often failed after less than 150 kilometers, under 100 miles. The British tried to test captured Panthers after the war, but couldn't even finish the trials. The tanks broke down again and again. The French, who operated captured Panthers from 1946 to 1950, reached the same conclusion. The Panther's greatest weakness wasn't its armor or gun, it was its own gears. Originally, German engineers had planned for a 35-ton tank, but as the design evolved, more armor, a bigger gun, more weight were added, until it hit 45 tons. The gears flexed, cracked, and destroyed themselves. The Maybach engine behind the driver delivered 690 horsepower. Impressive on paper, but temperamental. Overheating, leaking oil, broken fuel pumps. During the Battle of Kursk, more Panthers were lost to breakdowns and fires than to Soviet shells. The Germans even had to limit engine speed to make it survive longer, cutting power and mobility. And then there was the turret, a marvel of design in theory, but completely dependent on the tank's electrical system. If the engine stalled or the generator failed, the turret stopped moving. Imagine being under fire, trying to swing your gun onto target, and realizing your turret won't turn. In contrast, the Sherman's electric traverse worked independently of the engine. It could spin the turret 360 degrees in just 15 seconds. Inside, the Panther was cramped and confusing. A maze of shell racks and stiff controls that slowed the crew down. Its narrow tracks, perfect for paved roads, sank deep into mud and snow. So while the Panther was a masterpiece on blueprints, in the field it was a mechanic's nightmare. Still, American crews respected it. They knew how dangerous it was and when it worked. General Eisenhower himself received letters from armored commanders in early 1945, complaining that German tanks were better armed and armored. And they were right. In a one-on-one duel, the Panther usually had the edge. But war isn't fought in duels. While Germany built roughly 6,000 Panthers, America built nearly 50,000 Shermans. The Panther was complex, expensive, fragile. The Sherman was simple, rugged, and easy to fix. When the Battle of the Bulge erupted that winter, Germany threw everything it had into the snow. Around 1,500 tanks, including Panthers and Tigers. And yet the Shermans held the line. In towns like Saint-Vith, Stoumont, and Bastogne, U.S. crews climbed back into tanks that had been hastily patched together, some pulled from depots with the bodies of previous crews still inside. They fought anyway, because the Sherman could be repaired, replaced, and resupplied faster than the Germans could move. Behind the front, America's logistics machine roared. The Red Ball Express, thousands of trucks hauling fuel, ammo, and spare parts day and night, kept the Shermans rolling. A Panther might win a firefight, but it couldn't win a campaign if half its brothers broke down before even reaching the front. Take the Battle of Aracourt. September 1944, Lieutenant Colonel Grayton Abrams, the man whose name now lives on in the M1 Abrams, led the U.S. 37th Tank Battalion against a German force filled with brand-new Panthers. For 2 days, in fog and mud, Abrams's Shermans destroyed over 50 German tanks while losing just 14 of their own. How tactics, coordination, artillery, air support. The Panther was stronger, but the Americans fought smarter, and their machines actually worked. By the war's end, the numbers told the story. Germany's high-tech tanks had bled the Reich dry. Each Panther took far longer to build and maintain than the Allies could afford to lose in Shermans. Even as the Reich crumbled, half of all Panthers were stranded, out of fuel, out of parts, or broken beyond field repair. After the war, the Panther vanished. No army adopted it. No new designs copied it directly. It was a monument to over-engineering, brilliant but impractical. The Sherman, meanwhile, just kept rolling. Modified Shermans fought again in Korea, in the Middle East, and with Israeli crews well into the 1960s and 70s. Some stayed in reserve into the 2000s. That's almost 60 years of service. From a tank designed in 1942, the Panther's legacy is a lesson in engineering philosophy. Sometimes perfection on paper is the enemy of performance in reality. The Sherman wasn't flashy. It wasn't the most powerful or the most beautiful, but it was the tank that always showed up. It started in the morning, drove to the fight, fired when told, and could be patched up for tomorrow's battle. In the end, Germany built a masterpiece that couldn't survive its own ambition. America built a workhorse that survived the war and defined modern armored doctrine, because wars aren't won by specifications. They're won by systems, by logistics, by the machines that keep running when everything else breaks. The Panther was a king on paper. But history, as always, belongs to the survivors, and that survivor was the Sherman.